Everybody, it's Trial Tuesday with attorney David Aaylor, and today we're discussing what happens when you're injured by another patron in a bar or club establishment. David, as always, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Interesting question. Is this something that you see frequently?
You definitely do, particularly during times of tourism, because obviously you have a lot more people that are frequenting bars and restaurants in a town like Charleston. And a lot of times people really don't know what to do, whether it be something happening with some security that actually is employed by the bar, or it be another patron involved in some sort of, altercation that leads to injury. So the first thing that you have to always understand is you definitely want to report it and get medical treatment if needed, because a lot of times people may have something that happens at a bar, they then leave because they're concerned about police interaction and that sort of thing, and then later they try to recover from it, and it's too hard to sort of go backwards.
I'm sure a lot of people, when they're in the bar, maybe drinking a little too much, is what leads to that altercation.
Right.
They're probably afraid to call the police or, whatever, but you still say that's what you need to do.
Well, if you're a victim of it, obviously,
if you did it, I'm not.
Sometimes people consider themselves a victim and they may not be.
Sure.
But you have a lot of situations where things occur, and ultimately, when someone's injured, that fault could go back on obviously the person that caused it, but also you have to look at the security of the bar or restaurant to determine whether or not they're at fault for over-serving a person that may have led to the incident that occurred, as well as just a security issue. Sometimes there's certain places that may have more incidents than others that should have certain safety measures put in place, such as cameras, actual security guards, that sort of thing, that you really want to watch out for if you're in those crowded atmospheres.
And that's very interesting. How far does the fault lie in the bar? You said, over-serving. How can you determine that they gave you one too many, that it's their fault or it's the patron's fault?
Well, just like any other incident, a lot of times it's going to come out to looking at other witnesses and them telling you what they saw and sort of what occurred. Now, a lot of times the insurance companies that are involved representing the bars and restaurants are going to have a waiver where they're not having to cover anything that was alleged to be something that was caused by the patron themselves on purpose. There was an intentional act, as they put it. However, that doesn't always mean that they're going to be able to skate out of that coverage due to just because it's the intentional act, because again, you go back to whether or not the person was overserved. You also go back to whether or not the bar employed enough staff to handle the crowd and the type of crowd that was in the environment.
I imagine this gets really messy. Everybody drinking, having a good time. He said, she said. Maybe no one really clearly remembers what happened.
Right.
That's where cameras probably are a good
Exactly.
idea.
The cameras definitely help out a lot. A lot of times it's over a she that the two gentlemen start to argue over, and then it leads to other things. And a lot of times that could be something that was stopped ahead of time due to security measures. However, if it's not, you're exactly right. If you at least have some sort of film, maybe not only to show the actual altercation, but also look back to see how many times this person was coming into the bar, how many drinks they were being served, were they intoxicated prior to even entering the bar. There's just a lot of liability issues out there that have to be covered if you're the one that's been injured and you need to get recovery some way or another, whether it be from the person that caused it or also the establishment.
You always tell us to act right away or report it right away. Do you frequently see people come to you too late?
You do.
It's been a couple weeks, they go see you, and
you'll see something that'll happen on a Friday night, some sort of incident, and then a person will be injured, not really do anything about it that night, and the next week start to have. One example I had, a young man had a lot of migraines. He had been punched, fractured part of his eye, went to the hospital on his own accord, but didn't file a report even within the bar. So it was very difficult to try to go back and sort of put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Back in the tube,
yeah, essentially, because then you're trying to get the video that may not exist anymore. You're trying to get witnesses that are no longer there, and so then at that point it's very difficult to try to find recovery from anybody.
All right, Trial Tuesday, attorney David Aaylor. Bottom line, just behave yourselves, right?
Yeah, be calm.
Be calm out there. All right, thank you so much more after the break. Stay with us.